The Second World War had a profound impact on the Middle East. It left the region in a state of political and social upheaval. The old order, dominated by European colonial powers, was crumbling. The war had weakened Britain and France, the two major players in the region. This created a power vacuum that the United States and the Soviet Union were eager to fill. The rise of nationalism was another significant development. Across the Arab world, people were demanding independence from colonial rule. They wanted to control their own destinies and shape their own futures. This desire for self-determination was a powerful force that would have a profound impact on the region in the decades to come. Amidst this backdrop of change and uncertainty, the seeds of future conflict were sown. The creation of the State of Israel in 1948, for example, created a deep and lasting rift in the region. The displacement of Palestinians and the ongoing conflict between Israel and its Arab neighbors would become a defining feature of the Middle East for generations to come. The discovery of vast oil reserves in the region added another layer of complexity. Oil quickly became a strategic commodity. It fueled the economies of the industrialized world. This made the Middle East a prize to be fought over, further entangling the region in the web of global power politics. On October 16, 1951, the relative peace of a political rally in Rawalpindi, Pakistan, was shattered by gunfire. Liaquat Ali Khan, Pakistan's first prime minister, lay dead. He was a key figure in the creation of Pakistan. His assassination sent shockwaves through the newly independent nation and the wider region.
I have always believed in the destiny of Pakistan and our right to self-governance.
Khan was a close ally of the West. He had steered Pakistan towards a pro-Western foreign policy during the early years of the Cold War. His death created a void in Pakistani politics. It also raised suspicions of both domestic and international conspiracies. The official investigation pointed to a lone gunman, but many believed there was more to the story. Some suspected the involvement of political rivals within Pakistan. Others whispered about the hand of foreign powers, keen to see Pakistan realigned. The assassination of Liaquat Ali Khan remains one of the most controversial events in Pakistan's history. It serves as a stark reminder of the volatile political climate that characterized the region in the 1950s. It also highlights the fragility of newly independent nations, grappling with the challenges of self-governance and external pressures. In Iran, the struggle for control over oil resources took center stage in the early 1950s. Mohammad Mossadegh, a charismatic and popular prime minister, nationalized the Iranian oil industry in 1951. This bold move, aimed at asserting Iranian sovereignty over its own resources, was met with fierce resistance from the West, particularly from Britain, which had long benefited from controlling Iranian oil.
Our oil is our national treasure. It is time we take control of our own destiny.
Fearing the spread of nationalism and the potential loss of valuable oil resources, the British government sought to undermine Mossadegh's government. They turned to the United States for help. Together, the two countries orchestrated a covert operation to overthrow Mossadegh and install a more pro-Western regime.
We can't let this nationalist movement jeopardize our interests. We need to act, and we need to act now.
The 1953 coup d'etat, orchestrated by the CIA and British intelligence, toppled Mossadegh's government. It installed the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, as the unchallenged ruler. This event marked a turning point in Iranian history. It ushered in an era of authoritarian rule that would last for 25 years. The coup had far-reaching consequences. It fueled anti-Western sentiment in Iran and the wider region. It also sowed the seeds of the 1979 Islamic Revolution, which overthrew the Shah and established the Islamic Republic of Iran. Another assassination that shook the Middle East in 1951 was that of King Abdullah I of Jordan. Known for his moderate stance and attempts to broker peace between Arabs and Israelis, Abdullah was gunned down in Jerusalem while visiting the Al-Aqsa Mosque. His assassination was a blow to hopes for a peaceful resolution to the Arab-Israeli conflict. It also exposed the deep divisions within the Arab world regarding Israel.
Peace is not just a dream, it is a necessity for our future.
The assassination was linked to Palestinian extremists opposed to Abdullah's policies. It heightened tensions between Jordan and its neighbors, particularly Egypt, which was emerging as a leading voice in the Arab world.
Abdullah's compromises are a betrayal. We cannot accept this.
The assassination of King Abdullah I, like the other assassinations of this period, created a power vacuum in Jordan. It contributed to the growing instability in the region as a whole. It served as a grim reminder of the challenges facing leaders who sought moderation and compromise in a region riven by conflict and ideological divisions. Section 5. The Suez Crisis, a turning point in the Arab world. The Suez Crisis of 1956 was a watershed moment in the post-war Middle East. It marked the decline of British and French influence in the region. It also signaled the rise of Gamal Abdel Nasser as a pan-Arab leader. The crisis erupted when Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal, a vital waterway that controlled much of the oil flowing from the Middle East to Europe. Britain, France and Israel, fearing Nasser's growing power and the loss of control over the canal, launched a joint military operation to seize control of the waterway. However, the invasion was met with international condemnation. The United States, fearing the conflict would escalate and push Egypt closer to the Soviet Union, pressured Britain, France and Israel to withdraw. Section 6. Nasser, Pan-Arabism and the Cold War. The Suez Crisis had profound implications for the Arab world and the broader Cold War rivalry. Nasser emerged from the crisis as a hero. He had stood up to the West and triumphed. This bolstered his image as a champion of Arab nationalism and anti-imperialism. Nasser's popularity soared across the Arab world. He became a symbol of Arab unity and resistance to Western domination. His vision of Pan-Arabism, which called for the unification of Arab states into a single powerful entity, resonated with many who yearned for a more just and equitable world order. The Suez Crisis also highlighted the growing influence of the Soviet Union in the region. The Soviets, eager to exploit the crisis to their advantage, provided military and economic aid to Egypt. This further alarmed the West and intensified the Cold War rivalry in the Middle East. Section 7. The rise of Arab nationalism and the decline of Western influence. The 1950s witnessed a steady decline in Western influence in the Arab world. The old colonial powers, Britain and France, were forced to relinquish their grip on their former colonies. The rise of Arab nationalism, fueled by figures like Nasser, challenged the West's political and economic dominance in the region. The United States, while wary of Soviet influence, also recognized the need to adapt to the changing realities of the Middle East. It sought to establish closer ties with newly independent Arab nations. However, its support for Israel and its continued involvement in regional power struggles fueled suspicion and resentment among many Arabs. Section 8. The formation of OPEC and the quest for economic independence. In another blow to Western dominance, oil-producing nations in the Middle East came together in 1960 to form the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC. OPEC's goal was to coordinate oil production and pricing policies among its members, giving them greater leverage in negotiations with Western oil companies. The formation of OPEC marked a turning point in the relationship between oil-producing nations and the West. It represented a collective effort by developing countries to assert control over their natural resources and challenge the economic order that had long favored the industrialized world. Section 9. A legacy of instability, the long shadow of the 1950s. The 1950s was a turbulent decade for the Middle East. It was a time of great change and upheaval. The old order was crumbling and a new one was struggling to be born. The assassinations of key leaders, the rise of Arab nationalism, the Cold War rivalry, and the struggle for control over oil resources all contributed to a climate of instability and uncertainty. The events of this decade cast a long shadow over the region. They shaped the political landscape of the Middle East for decades to come. The legacy of colonialism, the unresolved Arab-Israeli conflict, the rise of Islamic fundamentalism, and the ongoing struggle for democracy and human rights are all rooted in the tumultuous events of the 1950s.